When you're packing for a move, you're making a decision about every single thing you own. Your coffee mugs, your clothes, the decorations on your walls, everything. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why moving feels so overwhelming. It's not just the packing, it's all the deciding. Should I keep this? Should I donate it? Should I pack it? Or should I let it go? After a while, even the smallest decisions can start to feel exhausting. I've moved 10 times in 10 years, and I've helped hundreds of people declutter, downsize, pack, and prepare for a move. Along the way, I've noticed something. The people with the least stress when they move aren't necessarily the most organized. They're the ones who have a simple way to make decisions. Because once you stop second guessing every single item, everything starts moving faster. Not because you're rushing, but because you're no longer spending 20 minutes deciding what to do with one coffee mug. So today I want to show you the simple test that I use. I call it the 7-second packing test. It's helped me through 10 moves, and it's helped my clients make faster, more confident decisions without feeling pressured to be perfect. The 7-second packing test is made up of 3 simple questions. If you can learn these 3 questions, you'll spend less time standing still and more time making progress. Before I go over the 3 questions, there are a couple of things I need to explain. First, this isn't about making perfect decisions. It's simply a tool to help you make decisions with less stress and more confidence. Second, don't get hung up on the 7 seconds. Most items won't take that long. Some will take 2 or 3 seconds. The point isn't the number of seconds. The point is that you don't have to stand there debating every single item that you own. And finally, an item doesn't have to pass all 3 tests. It only has to pass 1. I'll demonstrate what I mean by that in just a moment. The goal of the 7-second packing test is to stop as soon as you have your answer and then move on to the next item. That is how you build momentum, one simple decision at a time. Now let's look at the first question. The first question is, do I use it? Now, at first, this might seem like the easiest question of the 3, but I think it's also the one where people tend to overcomplicate the most, because instead of asking, do I use it, they start asking a completely different question. Could I use it? Those are 2 very different questions. You could use that fondue pot someday. You could wear those shoes again. You could finish that craft project that you've been meaning to work on. You could dust off that exercise equipment and start using it next week. But that is not the question. The question is, do I use it? Not every day, not every week, just do I ever use it? One of the reasons why I like this question so much is that it brings you back to reality. A move has a way of showing us the difference between the life we're actually living and the life that we keep imagining that we will live someday. Now, there's nothing wrong with having hopes or good intentions. In fact, I hope you keep dreaming and trying new things. But when you're deciding what deserves a place in your next home, it's helpful to start with what is true today. So one of the things I've noticed from helping people prepare for a move is that we tend to give ourselves credit for the life we might live or the life we thought we would live instead of the life we're actually living. So we imagine ourselves taking up that hobby or hosting those big parties or finally getting around to that project. And sometimes those things happen, but many times they don't, and that's okay. This question isn't asking you to predict the future, it is simply asking you to be honest about the present. Because the way you are living today is actually the best predictor of what you will want to take with you into your next home. Now, there are always exceptions. You might only use your Christmas decorations once a year. You might only use your camping gear a few weekends each summer. And you might only use your tax records once a year, but that doesn't mean you should get rid of them. Remember, use doesn't mean use every day. It simply means that this item has a real job in your life. If it is serving a purpose and has a function, then it passes the test. Pack it, stop thinking about it, and then move on. The goal isn't to justify every item you own. The goal is to recognize the things that are already earning their place in your life. So if the answer is, I use it, then you're done. It passes the test, you pack it, and then you move on to the next item. If the answer is, no, I don't use it, that's okay. You move on to question 2. So the second question is, do I love it? Now this one can be a little trickier because over time we tend to confuse familiarity with love. We get so used to seeing something that we stop asking ourselves how we actually feel about it. It simply becomes part of the background. So that lamp in the corner, or that picture on the wall, or that throw pillow that's been sitting on the couch for years, they're not necessarily things we love. They're just things we've gotten used to seeing every day. Over time, we slowly stop making conscious decisions about the things in our homes. At one point, we chose them and we brought them into our home and we found a place for them, but after enough years go by, they simply become part of the scenery. We walk past them every day without really seeing them. And sometimes we assume that because something has been in our home for 20 years, it deserves another 20 years. But those aren't necessarily the same thing. Time alone doesn't make something meaningful to you. Sometimes it simply means that that item has been sitting in the same place for a very long time. And that's one of the gifts of moving. It interrupts your routine, and suddenly you're picking up every single thing you own. You're looking at it, holding it, wrapping it, putting it in a box, and it gives you a chance to ask a question you probably haven't asked in years. Do I still love this? Not should I love it, or would it be wasteful to get rid of it, just do I love it? Sometimes the answer is an immediate yes. Maybe it's a favorite piece of artwork, or a quilt your grandmother made, or a chair that's always been your favorite place to sit and read, or a photo that makes you smile every time you walk past it. Those are easy decisions. You love them. They've already earned their place in your next home. Other times you realize that you've simply gotten used to seeing something. So maybe it worked well in a previous house. Maybe someone gave it to you years ago, or maybe you bought it because you needed to fill an empty space. And over time you stopped noticing it. That doesn't make it a bad item. It just means it might not be something that you truly love anymore. So ask yourself, do I really love it? And if the answer is yes, it passes the test, it goes in the box. Pack it, stop thinking about it, and move on. If the answer is no, I don't love it, that's okay. You simply move on to question 3. If you've gotten any value out of this video so far, it would mean the world to me if you would take a moment and make sure you are subscribed. Subscribing is free and it helps me reach more people and help more people. Thank you so much. Let's keep going. The third question is, if it disappeared tomorrow, would I replace it? This one isn't asking you what you used to think about the item, it's asking you what you think about it today. So one of the reasons I like this question so much is that it cuts through a lot of the noise. So instead of asking how much you paid for it, or how long you've owned it, or whether someone else might want it someday, it brings you back to one simple question. If this item were gone tomorrow, would I actually replace it? Not because you have to, and not because you feel guilty, but because you genuinely value it enough that you would want it back in your home and in your life. We often spend a lot of time asking ourselves, should I keep this? But should I keep it can lead you down all kinds of rabbit holes. You start thinking about how much it costs and who gave it to you and whether you might need it someday and whether it would be wasteful to let it go. And before you know it, you're trying to build a case for keeping it. But would I replace it is much simpler than should I keep it. When you ask, would I replace it, it shifts your focus from the past to the future. So instead of asking if this item has meant a lot to you over the last 10 years, you're asking whether it's important enough that you would choose it again for the next 10. I remember working with a client who was holding a box of craft supplies that she had owned for years, and she kept taking things out of the box and putting them back in. And she said, I paid a lot of money for this stuff. I feel like I should keep it because it was so expensive. Now, she had already told me that she didn't use it and she didn't love it. In fact, most of the stuff in this box was unopened. It was still in the original packaging. So I asked her one simple question. If this stuff disappeared tomorrow, would you go out and buy it again? And she looked at it for a second and laughed and said, no, I probably wouldn't. And just like that, she had her answer. Not because I told her what to do, but because the question stopped her from thinking about what she had spent in the past and encouraged her to think about what she actually wanted in her future home. So that's one thing that's important to remember, is that you only get to this question if the item didn't already pass the first 2 questions. If you've already decided, I don't use it and I don't love it, now you're on question 3. So by the time you get here, you're not trying to decide whether your favorite coffee maker or your favorite chair should make the move, because those already passed the test. You either use them and or love them. This question is only for the items that are still sitting in that gray area, the ones that don't have an obvious answer. And that's where this question becomes so powerful. Because instead of asking yourself whether you should keep it, you simply ask, if it disappeared tomorrow, would I replace it? Maybe it's that extra floor lamp that's been sitting in the guest room, or that second toolbox in the garage, or the folding table that you only use when the whole family comes over for Thanksgiving. If you genuinely would replace it because it still adds value to your life, then it passes the test. Other times you realize that if it disappeared, you probably wouldn't ever think about it again. Not because there's anything wrong with it, but because it just isn't adding any value to your life anymore, and that's okay. So ask yourself, if it disappeared tomorrow, would I replace it? And if the answer is yes, it passes the test. Pack it, stop thinking about it, and move on. If the answer is no, that means it didn't pass any of the 3 questions. You don't use it, you don't love it, and you wouldn't replace it if it disappeared, so it probably doesn't need to make the move with you. Remember, you're not choosing what to leave behind, you're choosing what deserves a place in your next home. So let's put the 7-second test into practice with a few real examples. Let's start with something that I use all the time. My curling iron. Question number 1, do I use it? Yes, I use it. So that's it. I'm done. I don't even need questions 2 or 3. I would just pack this because it passes the test. I pack it and I move on. Now let's try something different. This is an old family book that's been on my bookshelf for years. So question 1, do I use it? Not very often. Question 2, do I love it? Absolutely, I love it. So I'm done. I don't even get to question 3. It passes the test, I pack it, and I move on. Now let's look at an emergency flashlight. Question 1, do I use it? Hopefully not very often. Question 2, do I love it? Not really. And question 3, if it disappeared, would I replace it? Absolutely. If the power goes out or I need it for an emergency, I want to have one of these. So it passes the test. I pack it and I move on. Now let's look at this vase. Question 1, do I use it? No. Question 2, do I love it? Not really. And question 3, if it disappeared tomorrow, would I replace it? No. It didn't pass any of the 3 questions, so I don't use it, I don't love it, and I wouldn't replace it if it disappeared. That tells me something. It probably doesn't need to make this move with me. Now notice what happened. The curling iron only needed 1 question. The book needed 2. The flashlight needed all 3. And the vase didn't pass any of them. So that's why I call it the 7-second packing test, because most items will take 7 seconds or less. Most of them actually won't need all 3 questions, and so you'll stop as soon as you have your answer. It might only take you a second or 2 to decide, and then you move on to the next item. So when you're packing for a move, there are a lot of decisions to make, but they don't have to feel so overwhelming. Now that you have a simple way to decide what stays and what goes, let me show you how to declutter faster before a move in this video right here. I'll meet you there.